Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled,
My partner's best friend crossed the line. I set firm boundaries. I never thought I'd be in this situation. You know, the one where you have to choose between your partner and their best friend. But here I am, caught in the middle of a mess I didn't create, trying to navigate the murky waters of relationships and boundaries. I'm Isla, 28 years old, and I've been with my boyfriend, Eli, for 3 years now. Eli's great, kind, funny, and supportive. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, hit it off immediately, and have been inseparable ever since. Everything was perfect, or so I thought, until I met Dylan. Dylan is Eli's best friend since college. They'd known each other for over a decade, sharing countless memories and inside jokes. At first, I was excited to meet him. I mean, your partner's best friend is supposed to be someone you can get along with, right? Oh, how wrong I was. The first time I met Dylan was at a dinner party Eli and I hosted at our apartment. He walked in with a smirk that I now recognize as his trademark expression. "So, you're the girl who's stolen my best bud's heart," he said, giving me a once-over that made me feel like I was being appraised at an auction. I laughed it off, thinking he was just being playful. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying to keep things light. But as the night progressed, I noticed how Dylan seemed to dominate every conversation, always steering it back to his and Eli's shared experiences. It was like I wasn't even there. When I tried to join in, he'd give me this look, like I was intruding on something private. After the party, I mentioned it to Eli. "Don't you think Dylan was a bit intense?" I asked. Eli just chuckled. "That's just Dylan being Dylan. He can be a bit much sometimes, but he's a great guy once you get to know him." I decided to give Dylan the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just nervous meeting me for the first time. Maybe he'd warm up to me eventually. But as weeks turned into months, Dylan's behavior didn't improve. If anything, it got worse. He'd show up unannounced at our apartment, expecting Eli to drop everything and hang out with him. When Eli would say he had plans with me, Dylan would pout like a child and make snide comments. "Come on, man, bros before hoes, remember?" he'd say as if I wasn't standing right there. Eli would laugh it off, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He didn't want to upset his best friend, but he also didn't want to let me down. It was a tightrope walk, and I was getting tired of being the net. The real trouble started when Dylan began to insert himself into our relationship decisions. It started small at first. He'd joke about how Eli shouldn't get too serious with me because it would ruin their friendship. Then he started giving Eli unsolicited advice about our relationship. "You shouldn't let her control you like that," I overheard him saying one day when they thought I was out of earshot. "A real man makes his own decisions." I was fuming. Control him? All I had done was ask Eli if we could have a quiet night in instead of going to a loud bar. How was that controlling? But Dylan's influence was insidious. He'd plant these little seeds of doubt in Eli's mind, and I could see them taking root. Eli started questioning my motives for simple requests. He became more hesitant to make plans with me, always checking with Dylan first to see if he had anything planned. The final straw came during a weekend getaway Eli and I had planned for months. We were supposed to drive up to a cozy cabin in the mountains, just the two of us. It was going to be romantic and peaceful, a chance for us to reconnect away from the stresses of daily life. The night before we were set to leave, Dylan showed up at our door, duffel bag in hand. "Surprise!" he exclaimed, pushing past me into the apartment. "I heard you guys were going to the mountains, and I thought, why not make it a group trip?" I stood there, mouth agape, as Dylan made himself comfortable on our couch. Eli looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. "Dylan," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "this was supposed to be a trip for just Eli and me. We've been planning it for months." Dylan waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, the more the merrier, right? Besides, I already took time off work." I looked at Eli, expecting him to back me up, to tell Dylan that this wasn't okay. But Eli just stood there, looking torn. "Maybe it could be fun," he said weakly. "Dylan's never been to the mountains before." In that moment, something inside me snapped. All the frustration, all the anger I've been holding back for months came rushing to the surface. "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. This is our trip, Eli. Ours, not Dylan's." Dylan's smirk turned into a scowl. "What's your problem? Can't stand sharing your boyfriend for a weekend?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "My problem, Dylan, is that you consistently disrespect our relationship. You show up uninvited, you make inappropriate comments, and you try to control aspects of our relationship that are none of your business. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it." The room fell silent. Dylan looked shocked, like he couldn't believe I'd actually stood up to him. Eli just looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting between Dylan and me. "Eli," I said, turning to my boyfriend, "I need you to back me up here. This behavior isn't okay and it needs to stop." Eli hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw everything I needed to know. He was too afraid of losing his best friend to stand up for our relationship. "I think," I said slowly, "that I need some time to think. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while." I packed a bag in silence, ignoring Dylan's muttered comments about me being dramatic and overreacting. As I headed for the door, I turned to Eli one last time. "When you decide what's more important, your relationship or letting your friend disrespect it, give me a call." With that, I walked out, leaving a stunned Eli and a fuming Dylan behind. The next few weeks were tough. I missed Eli terribly, but I knew I had done the right thing. I couldn't keep living in a relationship where I felt like a third wheel to my boyfriend's best friend. My sister was incredibly supportive. She listened to me rant, cry, and question my decision. "You did the right thing," she assured me. "You set a boundary, now it's up to Eli to respect it." I threw myself into work, trying to keep busy. But every time my phone buzzed, my heart would leap, hoping it was Eli. More often than not, it wasn't. It was on a rainy Tuesday, 3 weeks after I'd left, that I finally got the call I'd been waiting for. "Isla?" Eli's voice was hesitant on the other end of the line. "Can we talk?" We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between his place and my sister's. As I walked in, I saw Eli already seated at a corner table, 2 steaming mugs in front of him. "I got your favorite," he said as I sat down, pushing a mug of chai latte towards me. "Thanks," I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "So, you wanted to talk?" Eli took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology," he began. "A big one. I've been thinking a lot these past few weeks, and I realized how unfair I've been to you." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "You were right about Dylan," he said. "I was so caught up in not wanting to lose my best friend that I couldn't see how toxic his behavior was. I let him disrespect you, disrespect our relationship, and I didn't stand up for you like I should have." "Why?" I asked. It was the question that had been burning in my mind for weeks. Why was it so hard to stand up to him? Eli sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Dylan and I have been friends for so long. He was there for me during some really tough times in college. I guess I felt like I owed him something, and I was afraid of losing that friendship. But I realize now that a true friend wouldn't put me in the position of having to choose. I nodded, taking a sip of my latte. So, what happens now? I talked to Dylan, Eli said. Really talked to him. I told him how his behavior was affecting our relationship, how it made you feel, how it made me feel. He didn't take it well. What do you mean? I asked, leaning forward. Eli's expression hardened. He got defensive, said I was choosing some girl over years of friendship. When I told him that you weren't just some girl, that you were the woman I loved and wanted to build a future with, he laughed, actually laughed. I felt a mix of anger and vindication. So, what did you do? I told him that if he couldn't respect my relationship, if he couldn't respect you, then maybe we shouldn't be friends anymore. Eli's voice was firm, but I could see the pain in his eyes. Ending a long friendship, even a toxic one, is never easy. Oh, Eli, I said softly, reaching across the table to take his hand. I'm so sorry. I know how much this friendship meant to you. Eli squeezed my hand. It did mean a lot to me, but you mean more. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle around us. So, where do we go from here? I finally asked. That's up to you, Eli said. I understand if you need more time or if this has changed things between us, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work, to being the partner you deserve. I took a deep breath, considering my words carefully. I appreciate that, Eli, and I'm glad you've realized how Dylan's behavior was affecting us. But I think we still have some work to do. Eli nodded, looking relieved that I hadn't immediately shut him down. I agree. What do you think we should do? I think we should try couples counseling, I suggested. This situation with Dylan brought up some issues in our relationship that we need to address, like communication and setting boundaries together. I think that's a great idea, Eli said, a small smile forming on his face. I want us to be stronger, to be a team, and if counseling can help us get there, I'm all for it. We spent the next hour talking, really talking, in a way we hadn't in months. We discussed our fears, our hopes for the future, and the steps we needed to take to rebuild the trust that had been shaken. As we left the cafe, walking hand in hand under my umbrella, I felt a spark of hope. We had a long road ahead of us, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the same path. Over the next few months, Eli and I threw ourselves into couples counseling. It wasn't always easy. There were sessions where old hurts resurfaced, where we had to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our relationship. But with each session, we grew stronger, both as individuals and as a couple. We learned to communicate more effectively, to express our needs without fear of judgment. We practiced setting boundaries together, not just with others, but with each other as well. It was a process of rediscovery, of remembering why we fell in love in the first place and building on that foundation. As for Dylan, true to his word, Eli maintained his distance. It wasn't easy for him. There were times when I'd catch him staring at his phone, thumb hovering over Dylan's number in his contacts, but he never called. About 6 months after our cafe meeting, Eli and I were having dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant when he suddenly grew quiet. "What's on your mind?" I asked, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Eli looked up, a mix of emotions playing across his face. "I saw Dylan today," he said quietly. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Oh, how did that go?" Eli sighed. "It was strange. We bumped into each other at that new fast food place. He looked different, somehow smaller, if that makes sense." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. He tried to act like nothing had happened, asked if I wanted to grab a beer sometime. When I told him I wasn't interested, he got angry, started saying all these things about how I'd changed, how I wasn't the friend he used to know. "What did you say?" I asked, holding my breath. A small smile played on the corners of Eli's mouth. "I told him he was right. I have changed. I've grown up. I've learned what real friendship looks like, what a real partnership looks like, and that I'm happier now than I've ever been." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eye. "Oh, Eli," I whispered. He squeezed my hand. "Seeing him today, it made me realize how far we've come. How much stronger we are now. I don't regret my decision, Isla, not for a second." In that moment, looking into Eli's eyes, and yes, I know this sounds cliche, I saw our future stretching out before us, a future built on mutual respect, open communication, and unwavering support for each other. We had weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. As we left the restaurant that night, walking hand in hand under a sky full of stars, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had come so far, faced so much, and emerged stronger for it. But little did I know, our journey was far from over. A few weeks after our dinner, I received an unexpected email. The sender's name made my heart skip a beat. Dylan. My finger hovered over the delete button, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was long, rambling, and clearly written in a state of emotional turmoil. Dylan talked about how lost he'd felt since Eli had cut him out of his life. He admitted to drinking too much, losing his job, and pushing away other friends. But what caught my attention was the last paragraph. "I know I messed up, Isla. I was jealous of what you and Eli had. I've never had a relationship like that, and instead of being happy for my friend, I tried to sabotage it. I'm sorry. I'm getting help now, seeing a therapist. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you both to know how sorry I am." I sat there, staring at the screen, emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as another manipulation tactic, but another part, a part I wasn't entirely comfortable with, felt a twinge of sympathy. When Eli got home that evening, I showed him the email. His reaction mirrored my own conflicted feelings. "What do you think?" I asked, watching his face carefully. Eli sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Isla. Part of me wants to believe he's changed, but after everything, we decided to sleep on it, to give ourselves time to process this new development. The next morning over coffee, we had a long, honest discussion about Dylan's email and what it meant for us. "I think," Eli said slowly, "that if Dylan is genuinely trying to change, it would be wrong of us not to at least hear him out." I nodded, understanding his perspective. "But we need to be careful. We can't let him disrupt our lives again." We agreed to respond to Dylan's email, suggesting a meeting in a public place. We made it clear that this was not a promise of renewed friendship, merely a chance for him to say his piece in person. The day of the meeting arrived, and I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach as we walked into the coffee shop. Dylan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking smaller and more subdued than I remembered. "Thank you for coming," he said softly as we sat down. Up close, I could see the changes in him. His eyes, once always glinting with mischief or malice, now looked tired and somewhat haunted. He had lost weight, and his usually immaculate appearance was slightly disheveled. "I meant what I said in the email," Dylan began, his voice shaky. "I'm sorry for everything. I've been doing a lot of work on myself, trying to understand why I acted the way I did." Over the next hour, Dylan opened up. He talked about his therapy sessions, the hard truths he'd had to face about himself, and the steps he was taking to become a better person. As I listened, I felt my anger towards Dylan slowly melting away, replaced by a complex mix of emotions. I could see Eli was similarly affected, his expression softening as Dylan spoke. When Dylan finished, there was a moment of heavy silence. Then Eli spoke. "Thank you for sharing that with us, Dylan. I can see you're really trying to change, and I respect that, but you have to understand. A lot of damage was done. Trust was broken. That's not easily fixed." Dylan nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I needed you both to know how sorry I am and that I'm working on myself." As we left the coffee shop that day, I felt like a weight had been lifted. Not everything was resolved, but there was a sense of closure that we hadn't had before. Over the next few months, we kept in sporadic contact with Dylan. It started with occasional text messages, checking in on his progress. Slowly, very slowly, a new kind of friendship began to form. It was different from before, more mature, with clear boundaries and mutual respect. Our journey wasn't over. In many ways, it felt like it was just beginning. There would be plans to make, a life to build together, and undoubtedly more challenges to face. But I knew that whatever came our way, we would face it together, stronger and wiser for everything we'd been through. After all, if even Dylan could come around, then so could anything and anyone. Here are my thoughts about this story. Okay, so let me just start by saying, damn, this story had more twists and turns than a pretzel factory on steroids. I mean, when I first started reading, I thought we were in for your typical toxic friend gets the boot situation. But things swerved where I thought the story would go straight. Let's talk about Isla and Eli for a sec. These two, relationship goals, am I right? The way they stuck together, though Dylan's shenanigans were honestly inspiring. I've seen friendships crumble over way less drama, so major props to them for having each other's backs. And can we just appreciate Isla's backbone? Girl stood up for herself and her man like a boss. Now Dylan, oh Dylan, Dylan, Dylan. At first I wanted to reach through my screen and give him a good shake. Like, dude, what's your deal? But then plot twist, the email arrives and suddenly I'm feeling all kinds of conflicted. It's like the writer took my emotions, then put them in a blender and hit puree. Still doesn't excuse his actions whatsoever, but an explanation is always nice to have. And let's be real, we've all had that friend who's a bit of a mess, right? The one who makes you want to pull your hair out, but you can't help rooting for them anyway. Dylan's transformation hit home for me. It's a reminder that people can change if they're willing to put in the work. Kind of makes you wonder about all the people we've written off in our lives, doesn't it? But what actually got me was how Isla and Eli handled the whole situation. They set boundaries. Hello, adulting 101. But they also gave Dylan a chance to prove himself. That's some next level emotional maturity right there. I mean, how many of us would have just blocked Dylan's number and called it a day? Now, I gotta admit, part of me was waiting for another shoe to drop, like maybe Dylan would revert to his old ways or some new drama would pop up. But nope, sometimes people do change. Sometimes forgiveness is possible. And sometimes love really does conquer all. Cheesy, maybe, but hey, I'm a sucker for a happy ending.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
My brother tried to steal my wedding venue for his girlfriend. I got him banned. It's been a wild ride, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I think getting it all down might help me make sense of it. So here goes. I'm Stacy, 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty normal family. My fiancé, Thomas, and I had been planning our wedding for months. We'd been together for 5 years, and we were beyond excited to finally tie the knot. We'd found the perfect venue, this beautiful old manor house with sprawling gardens. It was a bit of a splurge, but we'd been saving up and our parents had chipped in too. We were set to get married in June and everything was falling into place. That is, until my brother Brandon decided to throw a wrench in the works. Brandon's always been the golden child in our family. He's 2 years younger than me, but you'd never know it from the way our parents treat him. He's always gotten away with everything, while I was the responsible one who played by the rules. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but he can be a real piece of work sometimes. Brandon had been dating his girlfriend Melanie for about 8 months. She was, well, let's just say she and I didn't exactly hit it off. She seemed nice enough at first, but there was always something a bit off about her. She was constantly trying to one-up everyone, always had to be the center of attention. But I tried to be polite for Brandon's sake. Anyway, about 3 months before the wedding, Brandon and Melanie came over for dinner. We were all sitting around the table when Brandon cleared his throat. So, Stacy, he said, with this weird look on his face, I was thinking, you know that venue you booked for your wedding? I nodded, not sure where this was going. Well, Melanie and I were talking, and we both really love it too. We were wondering if maybe you'd consider letting us use it instead. I nearly choked on my drink. What? Brandon had the audacity to look annoyed. Come on, don't be selfish. You know how much Melanie's always wanted to get married there, and it's not like you can't find another place. I looked at Thomas, who seemed as shocked as I was. Then I turned back to Brandon. Are you serious right now? We've had this booked for months. We've already sent out invitations, and aren't you forgetting something? You and Melanie aren't even engaged. Melanie piped up then, holding out her hand. There was a flashy diamond ring on her finger that definitely hadn't been there the last time I'd seen her. We are now. Brandon proposed last night. Isn't it exciting? My heart was sinking faster than I could think. Congratulations, I managed to say, even though it felt like the words were sticking in my throat. But that doesn't change the fact that we've already booked the venue. I'm sorry, but we're not giving it up. Brandon's face darkened. You're being ridiculous, Stacy. It's just a stupid venue. You can get married anywhere. Thomas, bless him, decided to step in at that point. Brandon, I think you need to take a step back here. This is our wedding we're talking about. We've been planning this for months. You can't just expect us to give it up because you've suddenly decided you want it. Brandon glared at Thomas. Stay out of this. It's family business. I felt my temper rising. Thomas is family. He's about to be your brother-in-law, in case you've forgotten. And he's right. We're not giving up our venue. End of discussion. The rest of the dinner was tense, to say the least. Brandon and Melanie left early, with Brandon muttering something about how selfish I was being. I tried to shake it off, telling myself he'd come to his senses once he'd had time to think about how unreasonable he was being. But oh, how wrong I was. Over the next few weeks, Brandon and Melanie started a campaign of guilt-tripping and manipulation that would have made a politician proud. They got our parents involved, spinning some story about how this venue was Melanie's childhood dream and how cruel I was being to deny them their perfect day. My mom called me, practically in tears. Stacy, honey, can't you just consider it? Your brother seems so set on this, and you know how impulsive he can be. If you don't let them have the venue, they might just elope or something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, are you seriously asking me to give up my wedding venue to my brother and his girlfriend of 8 months? Fiancé, she corrected me. And you know how much it would mean to your father and me to see Brandon settle down. He's always been so wild. This could be really good for him. I was speechless. It was like I'd stepped into some bizarre alternate universe where my wedding didn't matter at all. But Thomas and I stood our ground. We refused to budge no matter how much pressure Brandon and our parents put on us. I thought that would be the end of it. Then, about a month before the wedding, I got a call from Linda, our contact at the venue. She sounded confused. Stacy, I just wanted to confirm something. Did you change the name for the booking? Because I just had a call from Brandon and Melanie asking about final arrangements for their wedding on your date. My blood ran cold. What? Linda explained that someone claiming to be me had called a few days ago, saying they needed to change the name on the booking. They'd given all the right details, my phone number, the booking reference, everything. I was stunned. Linda, I never made that call. That must have been my brother and his fiancée. They've been trying to take over our booking for weeks. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Linda spoke again, she sounded angry. Stacy, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. I assure you, we take this kind of fraud very seriously. I spent the next hour on the phone with Linda, explaining everything that had happened. She was horrified and assured me that our booking was safe, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My own brother had tried to steal my wedding venue by impersonating me. When I confronted Brandon about it, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. We weren't going to budge, so we had to take matters into our own hands, he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. Don't be so dramatic, Stacy. It's just a venue. I saw red. Just a venue? Brandon, you committed fraud. You could get in serious trouble for this. He rolled his eyes. Please, like you actually pressed charges against your own brother? That was the moment I realized just how little respect Brandon had for me. He genuinely thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Well, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I went back to Linda at the venue with a full account of what Brandon and Melanie had done, including screenshots of text messages where they discussed their plan to impersonate me. Linda was appalled. This is a serious breach of our policies, she said. Not to mention potentially illegal. I'm going to have to escalate this to management. A few days later, I got another call from Linda. She informed me that not only had Brandon and Melanie been blacklisted from ever booking the venue, but the company had also alerted other local wedding venues about their behavior. We take this kind of thing very seriously, Linda explained. It's not just about protecting our business, but also our other clients. We don't want anyone else to go through what you've experienced. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that Brandon wouldn't be able to pull this stunt again, but sadness that it had come to this. How had my relationship with my brother deteriorated so much? Of course, when Brandon found out what I'd done, he hit the roof. He showed up at my apartment yelling and cursing. How could you do this to me? He shouted. Do you know how embarrassing this is? Now we can't get married anywhere decent in this town. I stood my ground. You did this to yourself, Brandon. You tried to steal my wedding venue by committing fraud. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? He sneered at me. I always knew you were jealous of me. You just couldn't stand to see me happy, could you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jealous? Of what exactly? Your complete lack of respect for others? Your willingness to hurt your own sister for your own selfish wants? No, Brandon, I'm not jealous. I'm disappointed. He stormed off, but the drama was far from over. Soon, our entire family was divided. Our parents were furious with me for ruining Brandon's chances at happiness. Some of our aunts and uncles took my side, saying Brandon had gone too far. Others thought I was overreacting. It was a mess, to put it mildly. Family gatherings became tense affairs, with everyone walking on eggshells. Brandon and Melanie played the victims, telling anyone who would listen how I had cruelly sabotaged their wedding plans out of spite. But I refused to back down. I knew I was in the right, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. As the weeks passed and our wedding day approached, I tried to focus on the positive. Thomas was my rock through all of this, always supportive and ready to defend me against my family's accusations. You did the right thing, he would tell me when I was feeling down. Brandon needs to learn that his actions have consequences. Finally, our wedding day arrived. Despite all the drama, it was everything we'd hoped for and more. The venue was beautiful, the weather was perfect, and being surrounded by our true friends and supportive family members made it all worthwhile. Brandon and Melanie didn't attend, of course. Neither did my parents, which hurt more than I wanted to admit. But as I walked down the aisle towards Thomas, seeing the love in his eyes, I knew I had made the right choice. This was our day, and no one had the right to take it from us. The reception was in full swing when I got an unexpected visitor. It was Linda from the venue. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by," she said, smiling. "I just wanted to see how everything turned out after all the trouble. And I have to say, you two look wonderful together." I hugged her, feeling tears prick my eyes. "Thank you so much, Linda, for everything. I don't know what we would have done without your help." She waved off my thanks. "You stood up for yourselves and did the right thing. That's all anyone can do. Now, enjoy your day. You've certainly earned it." As Linda walked away, Thomas came up and put his arm around me. "Everything okay?" he asked. I leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "Yeah," I said, "everything's perfect." And in that moment, it truly was. But now, it's been 6 months since our wedding, and looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. So much has changed, and yet in many ways, life has settled into a beautiful new normal for Thomas and me. Our honeymoon in Bali was absolutely magical. We spent 2 weeks exploring lush jungles, lounging on pristine beaches, and immersing ourselves in the rich local culture. It was the perfect way to start our married life together, far away from the drama that had overshadowed our wedding planning. We returned home tanned, relaxed, and more in love than ever. Since then, we've been settling into married life, and I have to say, it's been wonderful. We moved into a cozy little house in a quiet neighborhood, complete with a small backyard that Thomas had grand plans for. He's talking about building a deck and maybe even starting a vegetable garden. I tease him about his sudden interest in becoming an urban farmer. But secretly, I love seeing him so excited about our future. We've fallen into a comfortable routine. Weekday mornings are a whirlwind of shared showers, hurried breakfasts, and quick kisses goodbye as we head off to our respective jobs. But the evenings and weekends are ours. We cook together, binge watch our favorite shows, and take long walks in the nearby park. It's simple, but it's ours, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Recently, we've started talking about starting a family. It's exciting and terrifying in equal measure. There are so many things to consider. Our careers, our finances, whether we're really ready for such a huge responsibility. But when I look at Thomas, see the warmth in his eyes and the gentle way he interacts with our friends' kids, I know he'll be an amazing father. We've decided to start trying in the new year, and the anticipation is both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Work has been going well for both of us. Thomas received a promotion at his engineering firm, which came with a nice salary bump. I've been throwing myself into my job at the marketing agency, and it's paying off. Last month, I landed a major account that my boss had been pursuing for years. The success has been sweet, especially given all the stress and drama surrounding the wedding. As for Brandon and Melanie, well, karma has a way of catching up with people, doesn't it? About a month after our wedding, the story of what they tried to do somehow got out on social media. I suspect one of our cousins might have spilled beans, but I can't be sure. Whatever the source, the post went viral in our local community, and suddenly Brandon and Melanie found themselves at the center of a storm they couldn't control. The backlash was intense and immediate. Brandon's company, which deals heavily in public relations, was furious about having an employee involved in such a scandal. They pride themselves on their ethical standards, and Brandon's actions flew in the face of everything they claimed to stand for. He didn't lose his job, but he was put on probation and passed over for a promotion he'd been gunning for. The last I heard, he's still on thin ice at work, with his every move being scrutinized. Melanie didn't fare much better. She works, or should I say work, as a teacher at a private elementary school. When the school board got wind of her involvement in the wedding venue scheme, they called her in for a meeting. Apparently, they felt that someone willing to engage in fraud and deception wasn't the best role model for impressionable young children. She was asked to resign to avoid a formal dismissal. Last I heard, she's struggling to find another teaching position, as news of the scandal has made the rounds in local education circles. Their dream wedding plans fell apart completely. Not only could they not book any of the premium venues in town, thanks to the blacklist, but many of their friends distanced themselves after learning what they'd done. Several of their bridesmaids and groomsmen backed out, not wanting to be associated with such a controversy. Melanie's parents, who had initially offered to pay for a significant portion of the wedding, withdrew their financial support, leaving the couple scrambling to figure out how to fund even a scaled-back ceremony. The strain quickly began to show in their relationship. They started fighting constantly, each blaming the other for their ruined plans and tarnished reputations. Melanie accused Brandon of not standing up to his family, meaning me, and letting our wedding take precedence. Brandon fired back that it was Melanie's idea to try and take over our venue in the first place. The final straw came when Brandon's best friend reluctantly admitted that he'd always had doubts about Melanie. Apparently, he'd overheard her at a party shortly after she and Brandon started dating, bragging to her friends about how she had landed a guy with a trust fund. Brandon, who had always been sensitive about people liking him for his family's money, was devastated. 3 weeks ago, I heard through the grapevine that the engagement was officially off. Melanie moved back in with her parents, while Brandon has thrown himself into his work, trying to rebuild his reputation at his company. Their dream of a picture-perfect wedding has gone up in smoke, leaving behind only ashes and regret. As for my relationship with my own parents, it's still strained, but slowly improving. I think the shock of Brandon's relationship imploding made them realize that perhaps they've been a bit hasty in taking his side. Mom called me a few weeks ago, awkwardly asking if Thomas and I would like to come over for dinner. It was a start, at least. The dinner was tense and awkward, with long silences punctuated by stilted attempts at small talk. But as the evening wore on, I could see my parents making an effort. Dad asked Thomas about his new promotion, showing genuine interest in his work for the first time. Mom brought out old photo albums, and we spent some time laughing over embarrassing childhood pictures. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. Since then, we've had a few more family dinners. Each one gets a little easier, a little more natural. Last week, Mom even called just to chat, something she hasn't done since before the whole wedding fiasco. She didn't mention Brandon or apologize for taking his side, but I could hear the unspoken regret in her voice. I'm not ready to fully let my guard down yet, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we can rebuild our relationship. Brandon and I, on the other hand, are still not on speaking terms. He's reached out a few times, leaving voicemails that range from angry rants to tearful apologies. I'm not sure I'm ready to deal with him yet. The hurt and betrayal still feel too fresh, too raw. Thomas thinks I should hear him out, give him a chance to apologize face to face. But I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, but not now. For now, I'm focusing on my life with Thomas and the future we're building together. We're talking about taking a trip to Europe next summer, something we've both always wanted to do. We're saving up, planning itineraries, dreaming about strolling hand in hand along the Seine in Paris or getting lost in the winding streets of Rome. If there's one thing this whole experience has taught me, it's the importance of standing up for yourself and not letting anyone, even family, walk all over you. It's also shown me the incredible strength of the bond Thomas and I share. Throughout all the drama and stress, he was my rock, my unwavering support. I fall in love with him a little more each day, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Our wedding may have been surrounded by drama, but in the end, love won out. We've come through the storm together, more united and more certain than ever that we're meant to be together. And really, isn't that what marriage is all about? Walking through life's ups and downs, hand in hand, facing whatever comes our way as a team. Here are my thoughts about the story. Melanie and Brandon, people like you exist? Like seriously, who does that? Trying to steal someone's wedding venue is next level bridezilla stuff. I mean, I've seen some crazy wedding stories in my life, but this takes the cake, or should I say steals the cake. But you know what really got me? The way our main girl handled it all. Talk about grace under pressure. You already know that if I got that call about my own brother having the audacity to try and take my damn wedding venue, I would have done one of two things. Cry about it in the shower or stormed over and committed a felony. Or both. Respect to our girl for handling it the correct way. And let's give it up for Thomas, shall we? This dude is the real MVP of the story. Supportive, level-headed, and not afraid to call out BS when he sees it. We need more Thomases in this world, I'm telling you. Now, I gotta admit, when we got to the part about the social media fallout for Melanie and Brandon, I might have fist-pumped a little. Is that bad? I mean, I don't usually root for people's lives to fall apart, but come on, they had it coming, right? It's like karma looked at them and said, hold my beer. But here's the thing that really struck me about this story. It's not just about wedding drama or family feuds. It's about standing up for yourself, even when it's hard. It's about recognizing toxic relationships and having the courage to set boundaries. Our girl here, she's a freaking hero in my book. And can we talk about that epilogue for a sec? That's where things got real for me. The way she describes settling into married life with Thomas, it's like that's the dream, isn't it? Not some fancy pants wedding that cost more than a house, but just being happy together, building a life, talking about starting a family. It's the simple stuff that really matters. I gotta say, the part about her parents slowly coming around hit me right in the feels. Family relationships are complicated, man. It's never black and white. The way she described those awkward family dinners, trying to rebuild those connections, that's real life, folks. That's the messy, uncomfortable, but ultimately hopeful part of repairing relationships. But you know what really got me thinking? The way she talked about Brandon at the end. The fact that she's not ready to forgive him yet. I respect that. Sometimes in these stories, you get this pressure for everyone to forgive and forget, like there's got to be a neat little bow on everything. But life isn't like that. Healing takes time, and it's okay to not be ready to let someone back into your life.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.